On Wednesday, January the 26th, 2022, I posted Anachronism 3495 and grabbed some popcorn. It's a long one. It's a skinny one. It's a long one. It's called A Poem About Memory and About Two Green Pens and Miracles and Grief and Defying Plato and Energy and Disposition. I have two green Energel pens with a name that sounds like if they were beverages. You'd find them naturally in the ever-expanding energy drink section, which is, to my senses, and I would like to add just plain common sense, filled with bottle after bottle and can after can of distasteful swill. Anyway, the thing is, I swear, a few weeks ago I threw one of these two green Energel pens with green ink into the trash because it had begun to refuse to make any marks, as pens are wont to do once the ink runs out, or if it's shoddy ink or a poorly architectured pen, perhaps. But here I am with the two pens before me, one in hand, through which the ink is flowing as smooth as a crystal clear stream, without any rocks or limbs or structures jutting out from below the surface at all, and nary a pad, as far as the eyes can see, either up, stream, or downstream. No pads, nor any natural or unnatural pallets of any kind covering the surface of the crystal clear stream, be it frogged or frogless, and in fact no lazy animals one might find enjoying the stream, either half in, half out, or just under the surface. No birds dipping down with a splash. Just that crystal clear water flowing at just the right rate. Not too fast, nor too slow, smooth as can be. That's how the ink is currently flowing from my green pen. Just as smooth and even as the curlicues of my grip can swivel and circle in the air just above the paper, where the thoughts that run apace inside my head may all be juxtaposed, one abutting the other. Being of a mood, as I am, when, for whatever reason, typing seems inappropriate or the incorrect way to go about things today. This can sometimes be the case. In fact, at least for me, even though I'm generally quite versatile when it comes to the method by which I stream words in such a way, or in the hope of making something one might call art, or special, or poignant of the accumulation of words. For example, some days I might record lines, other days I might dictate them in my phone into my little handheld supercomputer. As I think of them these days, only recently have things become so advanced that they can, at times, be worthwhile. One of the many options we have to construct these conglomerates of words, and so being old school, as it might be said, meaning simply old, it's a pretty exciting thing for me to use my tip-top pens, like this green pen, which hastily and a bit too sloppily is now scribbling this first draft. So what turned out to be at first a mild dilemma has become instead something of an unexpected blessing. Sorry, my phone rang and I'm going to keep going here because it's a long one. Since from now on, whenever I come across these lines, or even see the title scrolling down through all of the little packages I create in order, among other things, to rattle my memory a little bit, I will indeed remember. This silly moment will forever be a part of the history of me, which I can recall, wax nostalgic, learn even if about how and why I might write something that is perhaps a bit too lengthy, about a day when I discovered that I had two of my favorite green pens, when I believed I only had but one. I could mention that one way that I tend not to be able to build a poem, and am envious of those who can, or at least it's not very often that I can, is by building a poem to near completion within the simple confines of one's own memory. Having the words arrive in your head in just a way that the structure, the words, all are remembered and built strictly in one's mind. No can do. Oddly enough, I've started to do that a little bit. Anyway, I'm the guy who writes primarily because he cannot, under normal circumstances, remember. That's true, too. Writing creates a rememberable history of me, which I appreciate so much, that I do it. Like this, most every day. The ongoing force that is within me cannot but write these various and often eccentric or so mixed up jumbles of myself that once assembled are stories unto themselves, which, by the way, is the other bookend of the poem that completes it. The other being to write things in such a way to remember actual times, places, events, simple moments, monumental ones, and all that might be said to be in between. No matter the fiction that might be added in fits and starts, there is above all this tiny record of my existence, one to which I can refer while still here at it, and one which gives me great joy and enlightenment, and may even do the same for others who find themselves reading one or two of them at some point. Should such a happy accident as this occur, but of that I am not the expert. I leave it to the reader. And the words then, at any rate, at any later date, often elicit memories of literal times I experienced. And it is this archiving that becomes imperative to me, without which I would seemingly have so little to work with. No means to really compare, to learn from, and to use in order to grow or to mature as a human, a good human, which is an aspiration, at least for me. These create little sounding boards from the past towards which to toss out ideas and to see what then might return, with which to brainstorm. There's the constructed piece, archived, which forever lives with an old me, toward which I can, from some distance yonder, look back, and with whom I can even converse, and we can assess whether or not we are doing okay. Or whether we're regressing or backsliding, moving into dangerous or treacherous territory. So, as I was saying, distractedly, there are many means by which to create these sounding boards for the many archives past that exist with all of the versions of me that have come before the ones that I am now. And yet today, I hold in my right-handed grip my favorite pen, with green ink, and with one hand holding down the tiny notebook upon which, gripped in the other hand, this pen is smoothly issuing forth, and at quite a speed. What you or I are now reading in front of us at some possible distance into our individual futures. Again, with my left hand, I hold the small notebook that is being written upon, and in my right, I have a green pen. Whether or not it was the one I thought I threw away, I have no idea. And so, after getting this far into what has become a rather tall structure, I might feel it necessary to go about switching pens, to see how the identical pen might act when gripped and swung to and fro over and about the small notebook, what its tip might offer the paper that is now being filled page after page by the pen which I am presently holding so as to build. And so I switch. Could it be the one I thought I tossed into the trash, which barely left a stain, which left almost nothing but a few scratches and green sputters upon the paper when last I had it in this grip? Well, let us see if it is. And lo and behold, the identical green pen has what appears to be the capacity as the one that was being written with before it. There is no sputtering, no stuttering. The lines of ink are as solid and smooth and are written with the same ease as the ones before it. Could this be the pen that I had meant to trash? Was I so wrong in believing that the life of it had all but left? That it was for me of no more use? Or might this pen, or the one that came before it, somehow miraculously, or by some odd act of serendipity — I have no visitors, I haven't bought a writing utensil in many months — could it have arrived by some magic? Is now in my hand, writing the end of this long piece about many things that are centered around the two green pens that I now have, that each work perfectly. Plato was wrong when he said that for everything there was an ideal template. What I have here are the absolute ideal Platonic templates to the perfect pen for my hands, and they are identically perfect with which to build these structures, particularly if they are tall and wordy like this one. Am I saying that clearly Plato was wrong? And furthermore, would either of these green pens be the ideal template of pen, if we were to ask Plato? May I venture to say probably not. So, haven't we just learned to defy one of the greatest philosophical and otherwise minds ever known to have lived on this beautiful planet, just with a simple somewhat tedious stack of lines about, among other things, 2 green pins? Probably not.